Hi, guys. Welcome to The Habit Architect. It's me, Flor, the producer. I'm subbing for Cubs because today I will be hosting and he will be my guest. Unfortunately, our guest of the week, Leo, had to step away because of for some personal issues, but he'll be back. He'll be back, so don't worry. And for now, actually, it was something very interesting that Cubs and I have been talking about recently, and that is all the hype around AI. And I know that if you've been on LinkedIn, you've heard like, oh, AI slop, whatever. And in copywriting, that is the world that I live in. There's a lot of usage of AI, but I often ask Cubs like, what do other businesses use AI for and how do they use it? And then we started investigating on this. And I think that a lot of people don't really know. Like, we check the box, right? Like, you need to use AI. This is the new tool, this is the new thing. But how do you use it? When do you use it? Where do you use it? I'm not really sure we all know. So I thought, hey, since Leo is stepping out, maybe we can talk about this. And Gab said, okay. And I thought, well, if we're doing this, he's the expert. So I'm going to ask him the questions. I just asked you guys to bear with me because I'm doing two jobs at the same time. So just give me a minute while I set everything up. And always remember, like, subscribe, rate us, all that good stuff. Let me bring Cups in.
Nice.
Cups.
Hello. I enjoyed hearing that introduction from a different perspective. I loved it.
It was hard, but I did it.
You did it. You did great. Yes. Yes, yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Good
Okay,
morning.
so good morning. So the first thing that I remember that we talked about was that there's like three specific things that anyone who's looking to invest into AI should look at before they actually, put that money. Because, and I get this DMs all the time, and I'm not even mid level. I'm like an entrepreneur, like maybe we're three people on my agency, and I still get messages from people being like, use this
Yeah.
AI tool, it's going to change your life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? How? Like, how is that even a thing? So, you know it's oh my god, so like, how many
Yeah.
executives have you actually talked to that go through
Oh,
this?
yeah, a lot. And it's an interesting thing because AI is so accessible that from small businesses, like you said, you've got three employees and you're an entrepreneur, up to, multi-million dollar public companies. And the challenge is still the same regardless, because what you said is everybody says this AI is going to change your life. Well, first of all, let's not make it as dramatic as that, because I mean, as a vendor, you shouldn't be saying you're going to change your lives. What they need to be telling you is, we know what your business is like, and we've seen other customers do it this way, and it helps them run their business in a different way, or something. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think it gets back to, I think when did we talk to Johan? It was last week or the week before.
Last week.
We talked about three kind of key areas of. There's the first one, I think, is operationally. So what is it when you look inside your company, whatever size company it is, where can AI help you do more, save money, make more money, things like that. The second area, so that's an important one too, and that's where a lot of companies are starting, frankly. The second area is, how can you deliver a better service or product to your customers, right? And so people might say, well, we're not a software company, so we don't have AI in our product, but that's missing the point a little bit. And I want to dig into that with you a little bit, because the way that your customer experiences your relationship it can be affected. So
Yeah.
that's the second area. And the third area is really not as much of how you implement it, but understanding your sector. So you run a marketing agency. So where is AI going to disrupt the marketing agencies, and where can you benefit from it, right? And so understanding that gives you that North Star to say, we're going to go here because the industry's going here, or you don't agree with that. You're going to be contrarian to that, and you're going to take a different stance. But I think those three pillars, if you think about internally, what can we do to save money, make money? And secondly, what is our customer experience that we're delivering, and can we use AI to make it better? And third is, what is happening in my industry, and am I staying ahead, falling behind, and or setting? Are you the innovator in your sector? So those three areas, I think, are the key. Outside of that, what you said, people, hey, I talk to people all the time. They say, oh, well, we gave our team Copilot, or we gave our team Claude, and so we're AI now. And if you ask them one layer deeper, okay, so what are your employees doing with it? And they go, oh well, I don't, they're using it to help write emails, or and it's vague, and it doesn't have a direction. It doesn't have, this is what we're using it for, right? It's just
Yeah.
kind of generally everybody feels like, oh, we got to get our company doing some AI stuff.
Yeah, and we actually, even from last season, from season two, we actually been talking to people about the implementation and everything about that, because I know that you've been looking into AI even before Gemini and Copilot were a thing. I know you had it on your sites, and whenever I have a talk with you, or we do a show with a guest, there's more and more words that you bring into the conversation that make me have to Google it, because I have no no idea what you guys are
Sorry.
talking about.
Sorry.
Because in my world, AI is, as you say, like, oh, I pay for Claude, and then I
Yep.
talk to my brother. He's a programmer, and I tell him, how
Yep.
do you use Claude? And he's, no, I use Claude Code and blah 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 and agents. And I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
each industry has their own way to use AI,
Yep.
in whichever sense. So if we go into the first pillar, right, that we said it was operations and earning certainty.
Yep.
So you're not talking about drafting emails faster. So we already established that. So what it actually is it that you can do with like, how can AI help your operations? Like, I don't know, if
Yeah.
I'm an accountant, because maybe we
Yeah.
can take this out of the digital
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, if you think about companies, they've been on a journey for years, and I've, fortunately or unfortunately, but a part of that for 30 years, I've seen companies innovate along the way, and it's under this kind of general umbrella of automation. So, how can we do work faster, better, with higher quality, and automate it to help our humans focus on the real problems. So that automation journey is not new. It's been ongoing for some time. But the underlying goal there was some sort of efficiency, right? So companies
Okay.
make investments, and they hire more people, they buy technology, they get new buildings and things like that. The whole effort there is, in that expansion, when you spend $1, are you getting $1 back? Are you getting $1.20 back? Are you getting $5 back? Or are you losing money, right? And
Mhm.
so sometimes you make investments based on those kind of criteria, but it's all about that efficiency with your investments, right? And I'm talking about humans too, right? So if you've got 200 people or 800 people or 10,000 people, the question that should be in your mind is, how can I help them be more productive so we get a better outcome of whatever that is? And so when you mentioned a word there that I really like, is earning certainty. So what does that mean? So you can figure out, if you invest here, does it make your employees more productive? If you invest there, does it help your customers access yourself much easier, et cetera? So there's all these these areas that you can look at. So let's be tangible here. So operationally, just, can we do the work faster and better? I mean, I don't think faster is always better. So you have
Right.
to kind of put that quality measure on there. And so where can AI help us do that? In our go-to-market, how can we use it to go get more customers that don't know about us, or that maybe we are launching new products? So how do we get that into the market faster and more efficiently? For example, if you've got a bunch of customers, you can sell new products to those customers at a lower cost than you can going out and finding more customers, right? Uh,
Right.
and so that's the go-to-market areas that you want to consider with AI. And then the third area is pretty obvious, is finance and accounting, right? And all the
Right.
internal areas, So you've got 10 accountants and they're overworked and they're putting in overtime or whatever it may be. So how can we either have those 10 accountants be more efficient, or what's the mix of adding technology that can take some of those low burden tasks off of them, so they can focus on the stuff like forecasts and the thought processes, versus the making sure that all the invoices are in the system correctly, right? So AI can do that. So I would look at it in that way. It's go to market. It's where do we want to expand or not expand, and then where internally can we, in HR and finance and things like that, can we be more efficient?
Right. And I should have asked this before, but I'm guessing that these AI tools change based on what you need, right? Like, for the operations, you wouldn't use the same AI tool as you would for the products and revenue, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
no, no, no. Like, I was gonna ask you, like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think if somebody comes to you and says, we have the AI for everything in your company, they are either misinformed or they're being deceptive, right?
Mhm.
Because while you could look at something like a Claude or a Gemini or something like that being across all of those areas, uh, it may not actually be the tool that's fit for purpose of what that job is. Now, it may be embedded in there, right? So yes, a Claude investments, you can use it in a lot of different areas, but you may need some orchestration, some workflow technologies, or you may need, different types of things that AI is embedded in to do the job better. So Claude is not going to help you process more invoices by itself, right?
Right.
There has to be other things involved. There's usually a human element. There's an integration to your finance systems. There's all of those things. So it's not one thing, and I wouldn't recommend you go out and just buy all the tools, right? Because then you're just gonna, how am I managing this? What's, you talked about slop earlier.
Yeah.
It gets unruly. So you can do it with some thoughtful processes, but you should understand that just buying Claude or Gemini is not going to solve all your problems. And it doesn't mean you're an AI enabled company. It could actually be you got a bunch of people doing a lot of things that aren't real productive because they can make images on Gemini, so they're doing that, right? And
Right.
so I think a thoughtful approach to it is the best way. So, and that's why those three pillars I think are important. If we can come in and assess that for you, then you know where to place that bet. Maybe you're having a customer issue, so that second pillar that we're going to talk about soon
Yeah.
is the most important. So don't worry about your FP&A today. You can get to it next year. You can get to, but if you solve this customer problem that's out there first, you're going to have more funds to do it anyway, right? So, and
Right.
I do see a lot of companies thinking about that first. Most people are saying, how do we get more customers? And I personally think that's a good question to ask, but it's not the only question to ask, because maybe you don't need more customers, right? If your customer acquisition cost is really through the roof, you have to spend more on advertising, you have to do all that stuff. Maybe what we do is we take care of our customers better and give them more things to buy from us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really that analysis. So I would just recommend looking at the three pillars holistically and then deciding where the investment goes.
Right. Right. It's sort of like in marketing, you look at the channels and you
Yes,
think, okay,
exactly.
which one? Because like the main difference also between a company like mine that it's small and an enterprise like, I don't know, Disney World, is that the money is is limited. I
Yeah,
really have to think where I'm investing if I want to invest, and maybe this fear of getting left behind, which is something else we're going to talk about. I don't want it to dictate my usage of the money I have to invest, because that's just like bad business. So
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's true. But I also like your comment about that it is specific to the industry, but I would tell you money's tight everywhere, even big companies. Now, sometimes, even though they have a lot of cash and you see an earnings and you go, oh my gosh, look at them, they made another 10 million this
yeah.
month. But there's still a lot of processes and stuff that go through that actually shut down the bigger companies. I think
Oh,
I think this is a unique time in history because smaller companies can innovate faster than big companies, because big companies just get in their own way. And I've been working with healthcare clients for years, and you talk about getting in their own way. Just getting agreement on what to do is half the battle, and then when they make a decision, it's how to do it becomes another battle. And
mm,
9 months down, and they still haven't done anything for the customer. And so
yes.
smaller companies, yes, you have to be very frugal with your investment, but with a bit of research and understanding, you can make the right investment. Like you said, it's a channel choice, right? Like I
Yeah.
love your analogy. That's a perfect analogy. Do you advertise, or do you do cold calls, or do you do local events or whatever?
Hmm.
Those are the decisions that business leaders ought to be making with AI, not just we've got Claude. Yeah.
Exactly. So going into this, I know that the second pillar that you mentioned is the products
Hmm.
and revenue quality.
Hmm.
And there's this one thing that I want to point out, that this is something that you said or you wrote in an email or something, and it really stood out to me. And it says, AI shouldn't reduce costs; it must increase the value of what you sell.
Mm. Yeah.
And that is so good, because talking about Disney, I was looking into LinkedIn news, and it was like Disney had to lay off, like, I don't know how many people from ESPN. And they
Yep.
always saying, oh, this is AI's fault. If it is because they are putting AI bots to do their work, then they're not using AI correctly, based on everything that we're talking about, right?
That's right.
So um, if it's not just about adding an AI feature, then what are we asking leaders to look at when we
Yeah.
mention using AI for products?
Yeah. So just generally, let's say certainly there are people that build products that AI can help them, right? It can
Mhm.
help their products be better. That's one. Software companies, technology companies, healthcare companies that can provide a product that helps their patients react faster,
Yeah.
things like that. So that's embedding into the product, and that's a necessary view of. You need to take that. If you haven't taken that view yet, and you don't know what you're going to do in your product strategy, you're probably already falling behind. You may already be well behind. But what you just said there about what is the customer experience we can deliver, and what you just said it. What happens? So a company says, oh, we're going to, because of AI, we can lay off 2,000 people. We don't need them anymore. And then what happens in the background? The customer calls and needs help with their product, and they can't
Mm,
find somebody, or they were waiting on that new thing in the product that doesn't get there because there's less people to do that. And there's this reverb effect that happens that customers get, quite honestly pissed off. I do it all the time. I think about this one innovation, and it's not really AI, but it's, well, now it's even more so. IVR technology, voice technology, that when you make a phone call
I
and
was
you get,
thinking the same
yeah.
thing. The
So
banks.
think about that whole experience. Banks, airlines, hotel companies, all of them did this, and they did it with the wrong motivation. They said, you know what? They said, hey, our customers will enjoy this because they'll get routed faster to somebody that works. But what happens is there's a metric behind that called call deflection, because every call
Uh-huh.
coming in that a human answers costs them $1.60 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So if they can deflect some of those calls to a bot, and what they're telling us is this better customer experience, what's actually happening is they're ferreting out
Sugar.
people that, yeah, exactly. And so think about the experience we all have. We hate it. We hate it.
Yes.
And to me, I don't understand why it's so hard just to say I want to check my balance. Okay, cool. But I need to talk to somebody about this balance because I think there's a problem. And you have to wait, and they make it so difficult. And so I actually make choices about how bad that customer service is. I changed the bank because I could not get the technology to work the way I needed to work. So they probably thought there's somebody in a boardroom that said, hey, we're saving $2 million because we implemented this system. And meanwhile, I'm taking my business elsewhere and no telling how many others are. And that IVR example, I think, is, we've all felt it, we all hate it, but companies continue to do it because it's saving them money, and they think they can convince themselves that it's good for the customer. So back to AI. So now we're at this point where AI may be able to help that problem. Maybe IVRs can get better, or there's given new channels for allowing us to do business with that company. But be thoughtful about it. If your first driver is, I'm going to lay off 400 people at my call center because I can automate this chatbot, that's probably going to be costly down the road, because buyers are getting smarter. And the good thing about AI, you and I can do more research faster than we ever could,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So we can find a bank that we like better and faster, and even more so. I can not just say, show me banks in my area. I can say, show me banks that support a business person doing this type of thing. And then all of a sudden you're getting real relevant information. So I can take my business elsewhere faster than I ever could. And so
Yeah.
if you don't focus on that customer experience in this second pillar, certainly if you can make your products better, do that. If you can make the experience better, do that. And we need to ask honest questions, and we can come in and assess that and say, how are you serving your customers today? And what is that experience from onboarding to everything, right? Even
Yeah.
offboarding, that bank I left, the offboarding was just as bad as the technology. I got a lot of, well, we do this better. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't. And they're like, well, if you give us another chance. That's not an offboarding. An offboarding would be, sorry, we didn't live up to your expectations. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. If you don't have a good experience at your next bank, come back, right?
Right.
Even that little bit of an offboarding focus would at least let me leave with a positive thing in my mind, that if something else goes wrong, I can come back later. But the way they did it was just like, it was almost a denial of problems. And
And empty
why don't you
promises.
just give us another try? And it just isn't a customer experience. That's a screw up and beg, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And it actually this is my field. Now I can talk confidently about this. But it's crazy how with AI marketing has become this weird gray area where people are like, I can do that. Yes,
yeah,
of course you can. You can do everything in marketing with AI, but should you?
Yeah.
Should you do it? Because then it's like, for example, LinkedIn reach, right? I always tell the people that I work with, you should comment on other people's posts because you get a great engagement, because you network, because people get to know you. And then they just put a bot to answer questions, right? And
Yep.
comment. And that
Yep.
gives the worst experience. And now
Yep.
these people, if you call them up or you cold DM them, they're gonna be
Yep.
like, I'm not answering this person. They spam me with like
Yep.
50 different comments that made absolutely no sense. They don't care about me. They don't care about what I'm talking about. And it's
Yep.
like, why would you do that? It takes you 5 minutes to just write it down.
Yeah.
Use the AI for something else, but
Yeah.
not for this. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Exactly.
use it for what you should use it for, because that's the
Yeah.
thing that makes the difference, right? The experience of the person that is buying from you, or that is collaborating with you, partnering with you, whatever it may be. That's what
Yep.
you bring to the table, you as a human, and then
Yep.
everything else, it could be the same as your competitors, but
Yeah.
your difference is you.
Yeah.
That's your
Right.
difference. So it's like
Exactly. Exactly.
crazy. It's absolutely crazy. What
I
are
love
some?
I love that rant because two things. One thing that I really enjoyed that you said that, because I think it's so true. And let me go back to the bank, since we've got this thread of my bank. When I did switch banks, I went to Mercury Bank, which is it's an online bank. You can't walk in a branch, at least in my
Okay,
area. You can't walk in a branch. And what's amazing about them, they are, I can tell there's AI in their customer experience, but it's not just this generic bullshit that says, hey, push this button if you want to do a deposit, push this button. It's not that. It is, I can actually ask it reasonable questions that say, hey, I'm trying to get some money from a bank and move it into here, and then I need to do this because of, and it goes, okay, here, and it came back with, here's the way we can help you, and here's, you can plug your Stripe into your API, and you go da 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 da, and it was just like, it was useful information. And then it's ended with, would you like to talk to somebody about this, or
yeah,
did we provide you enough information, or would you like to talk to somebody? And it I felt like it was helping my customer experience as opposed to just getting me off their back. Right? Does that
right,
make sense? The way I
yes,
felt was much different. Whereas the bank I left, I couldn't hardly even get logged into it. And then when I did, I was like, what the? When did we build this? Did Flintstones build this app? It was crazy. And so, I like what you said there. And just because Mercury can use AI doesn't mean they should, right? But they're
hmm,
doing it elegantly in the course of my experience with them. And I think you're right. So many people, and I'm guilty of this too. I use Claude a lot to help me build slides that I need to go present to a customer. And at first you're like, oh, look at all this stuff it put on there. Oh, it's awesome. And look at, oh yeah, that's important to say, and that's important to say. And then you sit back and you look at it and go, while I can put all that on the slide, should I? Right? Because the
right.
customer's going to look at it and go, whoa,
What the heck?
that's, yeah. And so it's an interesting challenge, because AI can do just about whatever you want it to do, but should you? It's just like you said, and sometimes the simplicity factor has to come into it, and that's where humans have the judgment that we need. And I had a disagreement with Angeline, my stepdaughter, and
I
she
love
was saying
Angeline.
AI will tell you whatever you want to hear, and she's
Oh
right.
yeah,
It will, but that means you have to ask smarter questions, right?
yes,
So be very. So what, to your point, is let's use AI where it's going to help us, not just because we can. And so when we're thinking about customer experience, I think that's an important pillar. We talked about efficiency on the front end. If you make bad decisions on this customer pillar, then you're going to actually cause reverb in the first pillar too, because it's going to cost you more to, you're going to lose customers, or it's going to cost you more to support those customers, or those things. So they go hand in hand. But it's such an important opportunity for businesses, especially small businesses. I think you can engineer, and maybe engineer is the wrong word, but you can engineer customer experiences that the big companies can't. So take advantage
yes,
of it, right? That's where what I love about the mid-market small businesses right now have a huge opportunity to change the game. And I'm excited about it. Anytime I talk to a small business or mid-market business that wants to do that, it's really fun, because they are gonna. I mean, we have the opportunity to shake the ground underneath that big, mega company that just did $1 billion in profit, right? And
yeah.
and and will they catch up? Absolutely, because they have money and resources. But by then, you've got a loyal customer base if you do it right.
Yeah, because I was thinking about what you said at the beginning in the first pillar that we talked about operations, and um, mid market, or like smaller companies, right? As you were saying, have this advantage that is it can be an advantage or it can be like a pain. I don't know. Like it depends on how you
Yeah.
use it. But we can act on our decisions like this. We don't have to go to a board and blah 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 blah. We don't have to do any of that. If we make the decision and we're sure about it, we can go and implement it tomorrow. And
Yes.
that's like enormous. I remember
Yes.
the first thing that I talked to my dad about when I first started um, ACC was I had a bad experience with one of the girls that I was collaborating with, and my dad was like, "Look, I don't want to be insensitive, but just tell her that the partnership is over." And I was like, oh, "How could I?" And he's like, "Because you can, because this is your business, because you
Yeah.
get to do that, you get to make
Yeah.
that decision and execute it, and you don't have to ask anyone for permission." And that
Yeah.
blew my mind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
imagine like
Yeah.
that's literally, and AI is giving us all these tools and we get
Yep.
to say, yes, I want to use this. And then tomorrow, if it doesn't work, we get to say, I don't want to use it
Yes.
anymore and use something else. That's
Yes.
crazy. Like that's a
Yes.
level of freedom that I don't think is often talked about or even talked about with AI. The amount
Yes.
of like tools that there are to say, okay, let me try this, let me diagnose it. Is it working? Is it not? And if it's not, boot it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's that easy. So that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting, Deb, because there's two things that you said in there. First is uh, you had a bit of imposter syndrome, right?
oh yeah,
It's your business. You can make the decisions, but we're kind of trained to say, oh, I need to be, either I can't make that decision, or I don't want to make that decision, or it's just that we delay those decisions. But if you're running your business, then some of the best leaders are the ones that are most decisive, and it's okay to experiment. You don't have. That's the nice thing about how you can consume AI too. You don't have to go all in. You can experiment to a point to get you where you can test results, and then double down on it later. And then the second thing is, you mentioned ACC. You always accuse me of using acronyms and stuff. So why don't you tell people what ACC is?
oh, so I created Cheshire, my agency.
There you go. There you go. Sorry, I get to do that too. I got to play producer there.
It's true. It's true. You got to do. That's true.
Yeah.
And then going in a little bit into this, like the risk bit of things. Let's go
Yep.
into the
Yep.
third item, and that would be industry risk and adjacent opportunity, right?
Mhm.
So, um, what is the actual risk if we just say, well, I gave my executives Copilot, that's it,
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah. So in this pillar, I think it's actually critical for you to look outside your company. So
Mm,
what are your competitors doing? What is generally happening in this space, right?
mm,
And let's go back to the banking example. So the banks have had a really interesting journey over the years where they thought every customer walks into their branch and that's how they market to them, right? They get them in their branch and then they can open up savings accounts and they can do all kinds of things, right? And then all of a sudden, people had options to go elsewhere. So if those banks that didn't do the elsewhere good enough became very obsolete, right? Fast,
mm.
or they got bought up and stuff like that. So in any business, in every business today, there is something happening in your industry sector that is either a risk or an opportunity to your business. And if you don't take the time to learn that and see that, then you are just going to be a follower, and then you have to figure out, is being a follower going to be okay for you, right? And it could be, right? Absolutely, there's sectors that you can just plod along, but if you don't understand the risk of not acting, or you don't understand the opportunity that you're passing by, then you have a big risk, especially now more than ever. Just now more
Right.
than ever, I think all businesses need to understand what is going on in their industry, and the ones that are looking for new ways to serve those customers could steal your customers in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean,
thinking the biggest
because
trick of being a follower is that if someone else
yeah,
does it before you,
yep,
you're cop out.
yeah, and you don't always have to be the first mover, because there's always first movers out there that make
Yeah.
mistakes. So, so you have the diligence, the habit, if you will, of understanding your market and staying in tune with it. What's happening out there, and there's a lot of areas you can get the information. You can use AI. Say who's doing this, who's doing what. You can also talk to adjacent industry people like investment bankers, or people in your community that actually know what's happening. And when I say community, it's not just in your virtual, I mean, it's your virtual community, right? In your
Yes.
business, what's happening for you, what's happening in advertising, what's happening on LinkedIn, what's happening on other new channels, and understanding that will drive what your decisions are in the first two pillars if you do it right, because now you're in there and you can put your hat on and say, what are the best opportunities for my business at this time where I can be different, I can be first, I can be something that I can't be, that I am not today, but I also I'm watching my competitors to know that they're not going to take my customers because they're doing it first, right?
Right.
And
Would you
so
also,
I'm sorry.
sorry, would you also say that this is the same sort of question but backwards, that one could make into not make, like, do not make rash decisions based on what everyone else is doing? And because we can say the same thing about using Claude. I could, like, when ChatGPT started, remember that they had this transition where it was like, oh, ChatGPT makes up stuff when it doesn't know what
Yep.
to say because it didn't know how to say I don't know. So we all
Yep.
jumped onto Claude,
Yep.
and maybe that wasn't, I mean, for me it was great, but maybe it wasn't the right decision for other people. So that
Yep.
anxiety of being the first one and implementing and being in that groove and not being
Yep.
left behind can also be detrimental,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yeah, I think there's two things. There's two sides of this. I think experimental with tools is always a good practice.
Mm.
So I wouldn't you use the word rash. I mean, if as long as it's not a big investment, try various variations of that.
Right.
But in your industry sector, I'm actually talking about a bit of a deeper analysis, right? So people, what used to call it market studies. They in product management, it's called product market fit and things like that. So in this
Mm.
third pillar, I think it's a bit longer intentions than just the tools, right? The
Right.
the tools, I strongly urge you to experiment. If you're using Claude, you try Perplexity or whatever the alternatives are, just to see how they're doing it. And you can do that at very low cost, right?
Yeah.
But from your strategic direction of your sector, your industry sector, I think that's a pretty longer term. And you're right, you don't want to just try things, right? The worst thing you could do in that sector is just keep trying things and your customers get whiplash, because one week you have them working with this, and then the next week it's something else, and the next month it's something else. That's not a good experience. So when you're thinking about your industry sector, there has to be, you have to have the purpose, and then you have to have the structured rollout, so you can explain to your customers or your industry, why this is the best approach that you think, and then the customers
Yeah.
make a choice at the end. But if you're just throwing things at your customer all the time, it's difficult. So that third pillar is really about it's not just the road you're getting on now, but it's the next three turns you're going to make to get to your destination. And
Right.
so that one's a little more thoughtful. Particularly in the first pillar in your operations, that's where I would do more experiments, like internally, right?
Mm.
Is improving this workflow going to actually do something for us? And the rash decision you shouldn't make is, I'm going to let 100 people go and implement this AI, and it hasn't been implemented yet, and you haven't tested it yet, and all of a sudden you have 100 people that could be doing that work today that you've displaced. And that we see that, right? We see people
Yes.
hiring employees back, and I think the winning companies are the ones that aren't looking just to cut those costs, right? It's a lazy approach to say AI is going to replace these humans. What the better question is how can I help the humans I have be better, do better,
Yeah.
help our customers more? And the companies that are thinking that way are the ones that win, right? Now there's always a cost arbitrage kind of thing where somebody's the lowest cost provider, but I think mid-market small business, we don't want to be the low cost providers, right? We want to be
No.
fair with our pricing, but we want loyalty, and
Yes.
loyalty isn't always the low cost. Loyalty is the least. I mean, low cost is the least loyalty thing. Now, people sometimes have to do low cost, but as small business leaders or mid-market businesses, you actually don't want to be the low cost provider. You want to be the one that the customer remembers, hey, when I need this, I'm going to call that person, right?
Yeah.
That's what we really want.
And it's associated, low cost can be associated with negative adjectives as well, like, oh, low cost is because their work is not as good, or blah 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 blah.
Yep.
You don't want that
Yep.
either.
Right.
There's a reason why luxury is luxury and people still buy it. So
Yep.
yeah, obviously
Yep.
you still want that. I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot because our sponsor, right, Enterprise Diagnostics, does have some cool tools. I've played around with the one that, like, you plug in what you're doing and it tells you, like, what you should improve and stuff like that. Are those kind of tools, which pillar would they be in, or are they not in any kind of pillar and they're a one-time thing? How does
Yep.
that work?
Uh, It's actually all three. So
Oh,
they have an assessment that will assess this for you. It's a low cost fixed fee engagement that will just do a quick assessment of all three of those pillars. But more importantly, then after that, it makes recommendations. It's diagnostics to say recommendations in those pillars of what you can make choices on. Right. So you get a recommendation back that says if you do this, it is worth X amount in your EBITDA or your customer survey. So the EBITDA stuff kind of fits mostly, and the exit readiness stuff fits in that first pillar,
yeah,
and the customer churn, revenue quality stuff fits in the second pillar.
in the
But
second.
it's all grounded in this whole concept of what's happening in your market. So all the benchmarks that are built into the diagnostic are in similar companies of your size and what you sell. What is the industry look like now, and
Talking
what
about
is
the
the
third pillar.
yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
the diagnostic is intended to take into account all those things and then make recommendations that you can act on. And that's the biggest thing I think that AI is missing today is what should we do first, right? You can't automate everything. You can't change everything tonight, but you can get started on the right purposeful driven initiative that is going to bring something back because it's kind of tested to say the industry supports this approach and it'll return this type of value back to our customer.
Yeah, so that was like the last thing that I was going to ask you before we wrap up, but it can be I'm privileged, and because I'm the producer here, I get to play with all the new toys before they're even exposed. And I've played with a bunch of the toys that Time Bandit created, and then the tools that Enterprise Diagnostics has created. And sometimes when I play with these tools and they're explained to me, because I'm the guinea pig and I love it, sometimes I get overwhelmed by all the answers because there's so many options, and I sit there and I
Yep.
think, okay, but now what? Like, I
Yeah.
see all these places where I can be better and more
Yep.
efficient, and but how do I even begin? Because this is so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Well, if we practice the principles of time bandit in the priority matrix, that applies to your business as well. You shouldn't, yes, there's all kinds of ideas, and ideas are great. And when we talk to Leo, he's a specialist in this ideation to execution kind of approach.
Oh, okay.
And so, but the concept is you don't want to stop ideas, but you need to filter the ideas in some meaningful way to your business. And so
Mhm.
you can apply the same priority concepts, like what's the most important and what's the most urgent. In business, you might add a dimension of cost versus return as well, right? But that goes into your importance, right? So if it's going to help your customers and you're going to save more customers over time or build more customers over time, then that may be more important, right? And then there's things that are urgent that sometimes you have to do, that that comes up on your priority matrix that you do them, you just knock them out. So it's the same concept. Businesses absolutely have to get into the discipline of not just accepting every idea, but going through some rationalization on prioritization of ideas. And when they do that, they're more efficient to their employees too. Because the
Right.
worst thing that happens is somebody comes in, a marketing leader maybe comes in and says, "We're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this," and then staff is like, "Holy shit, how are we going to do all that?" Right?
Yeah.
But if you come in and say, "We're doing this," or team, we have three choices. We can do this, this, and this. Here are the benefits of them. Here's our capabilities to execute those,
Yeah.
and then the team can say, "Okay, understand it. We're going to do number two first, and that's going to take us this, and then we're and everybody's now in line with the priorities." And
Right.
that small exercise, and I can help companies with that, is let's make sure that everybody gets to agreement and why we're doing it, and then execution becomes so much easier than just here, Flor, here's three things I want you to do, and you just go, okay.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know which one to do first. I don't even know anything about that third thing, so I'm just going to push it off. But that might have been the most important and urgent one, right? Because we just threw it at you, you're like, well, I know I can get these two. So
Right.
it's
Yeah,
it's
that one I'm scared.
it's a priority management issue, and that applies to individuals, teams, companies.
Yeah, yeah. So it would be sort of like, if we make it into a roadmap, it would be like, get diagnosed, use AI in a way that it's going to help you figure out where the gaps are,
Yep.
how you can fix them, right? And then
Yep.
because, like, if you're using enterprise diagnostics tools, I know because I use them, and this is the only example I can use. I haven't used any of them, any other than this one. it does tell you like this is how much you save or this is how much. So
Yep.
I would use it in the way that I would use it. I would be like, okay, which one is saving me the most, either time or money? And then I would rank them, right? Like, okay, these are my
Yep.
priorities. And then I can go into my, because I use the time matrix all the time with my team. And then I can put them there and be like, okay, guys, these are the three most important. How are we going to tackle them? And then
Yep.
make map that it's clear for everyone. And then
Yep.
maybe, yeah, we can ask Claude to help us out too.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the first is deciding what you're going to do. The second is how you do it, right? But if you don't answer the what and why first, then it's just going through the motions. It's troubling, and it's hard for us individually too. I mean, if you think about it, when we hang up this phone, we can choose to use Claude for any number of things, and we probably should and will. But are we using it for the most important things and the most urgent things first, right?
right,
Or are we kind of going down the rabbit hole, right? And it's like,
right.
oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Oh, look at that company over there doing that. That's interesting. But
Yeah.
meanwhile, you've got customers that are probably, you could serve better today, or you can find new customers today because you do something very, very well. So, just because you can, you shouldn't. You should have some priority management skills around it, and that applies to AI. And I do applaud companies for getting out and trying things, and there was a lot of hype about it, and be very careful about this, because if you notice, the big strategy consulting firms are saying, oh, you're falling behind if you're not using AI, and then about 6 months later, they came out and said, oh, well, 95% of the projects aren't returning ROI. And I even saw this stat this week. I'm in Houston, and I was in an AI event, and I just thought, what a bullshit slide, right? You scared everybody into using AI, and now you're telling them you're not using it right. And
Yeah.
well, okay, you just perpetuated a problem for the strategy consultants to sell more consulting, right?
Yeah.
They said, oh, you're using it wrong. You need to hire us to use it better. And I just think that just get away from the hype, understand your business, and then you can figure out in the operational pillar, what can we do and should we do, and then go do it. What in our product and customer experience, what should we do and could we do, and then go do it. And then all that's overlaid with the third about, are we going to be a leader in our sector? Are we keeping up? And it's okay if the answer is we're keeping up. Maybe you're in a certain situation in your business. It doesn't mean you're failing. Just keep up, right? And
Yeah.
and that's okay for now. And then you're going to find your angle to differentiate yourself and be a leader. And it's moving so fast that you don't really have to. Don't let the hype get you first.
Yeah.
It's really just be thoughtful about it, and just with a small bit of due diligence, you can make the decisions that's right for you, as opposed to what everybody's telling you to do. The thing that happened on LinkedIn that just drives me crazy.
Huh.
How many today, if you go scroll LinkedIn, how many people are going to say, if you comment, click,
Oh my God.
you can download our Claude guide, and I've
Oh,
done
and
them. I mean,
prompt.
I do them, and I still do them because I'm curious about what they're delivering more so than the outcome. I mean, I don't think
Are
I've
they
done
good?
it. No, I mean, well,
Oh.
yes and no. I shouldn't say yes, yes. But for me, what they are good about is giving me a thought process around solving that problem. But they're
Oh.
very, it's just clickbait to get more engagement on
Yeah.
their LinkedIn, or you will get a sales pitch right after you download it, right? Either one. And that's okay. I mean, I'm not begrudging anybody for trying to grow their business, but there's so many of them. Claude
Yes.
can do. Yeah, I saw a couple yesterday. Claude is all you need. You don't need McKinsey. You just need Claude. And I'm like, okay, that's not true, but they're somewhere in between, right? And
Yeah.
and if you download their kit, you'll do all right. So I think the hype is interesting. What I try to do, the discipline I try to put into it, I try to dig under the hype and say, what does that really mean? And not just download a guide and do it blindly.
Mhm.
Just say, what does that mean, and does it matter to me? And that's that. If I can answer those two things, then I prioritize accordingly. So
Right. I think that the age of AI, ironically enough, I guess, is the age of intelligence, in the sense of you have to be smart to swim it.
yeah,
Like if you use AI without using your own intelligence along with it, it's not going to
yeah,
work. You're going to be the slave to the decisions that this AI is giving
yeah,
you, and
yeah,
they're just mimicking you and your insecurities. Because if
yeah,
you tell it something, it's going to mirror you, as Angeline was saying, and give you the answer that you want. And if you're giving it into this fear or this hype, it's going to give you answers that are based on this fear and this hype. So you
Yep.
need to be intelligent when you use AI in
Yep.
order to get answers that are actually something that are going to be worth your money and your time, because we don't
Yep.
talk about the time, but and we
Yep.
didn't talk about it today and we don't have any more time, but that's also something very important. If there's something that is being the time bandit in this age, is
Yep.
AI. I spend
Yep.
so many hours on Claude that where I could have done it in a second without Claude. But
Yep.
sometimes you go in
Yep.
there and you get lost. So
Yep.
100%,
Yeah.
everything you said.
Yeah, I think I was trying to think of a good analogy, and maybe we can use a car here. So if you just think about using your own intelligence, things get put into cars all the time that help us drive and have a better experience, or help us see things we didn't see before. Cameras and stuff like that. But we still have to use our intelligence to say, I can park in that spot. I can make this work, and I can still open my door when I'm in that spot. So it's kind of that co-intelligence factor. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can use all this stuff to make a better ride, a more comfortable ride, a smarter ride, a safer ride, but you still have to make decisions on where that car
Yes.
goes and things like that. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's a good observation by you about that kind of co-intelligence kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we've been gone over as per usual whenever we talk because we're chatty Cathys.
Yeah.
But I want to say that this has been so much fun. I've never hosted before. I was definitely nervous, so rate me.
Were you? Didn't notice it.
Yeah, I was like, how do I do everything at the same time? This is much harder than it looks, Cups. You
I
wouldn't get
know.
it because you
I
don't
know.
host every week like I do. Just kidding. Um,
Yeah.
I just want to say that Leo is gonna come back. We
Yep.
haven't scheduled him yet, but he's gonna be back. And next week we have um,
Timothy.
Hughes.
Tim,
What's his
right?
name? No,
Tim Hughes.
Tim Hughes. Thank you. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember his first name. Tim
Yeah,
Hughes. So
and you talk about a conversation about what should you do, could you do. I mean, he wrote the first book on social selling, and now he's talking about what should you use with your brand about with AI. So I think he's
so
launched a tool, but I'm not sure. But he's an expert in this world.
it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a really good follow up. So yeah, I've been stalking him, so I'm excited about that. And he seems
Yeah.
like I mean, we've been messaging, and he seems like a great guy too. So
Yeah.
that's always good when experts
Yes.
are people as
Are
well.
friendly.
We
Yeah.
always like that.
Exactly.
And then to close, I'm gonna do what I always tell Cups to do, and he's been really good about it. But like, subscribe, rate us, and if you have any questions that we didn't answer, just you can comment it. I highly encourage anyone who wants to be on the show to DM us or email us. We've had some great guests that way, and you get to have Cups actually ask you questions and not me because he's much better.
I don't know. Be careful. I might hand the job over to you.
Oh no, that's okay. You can keep it. I'll do the rest. And if you want any more information, everything should be on Capsa's profile or either on LinkedIn. Everything is there. And Time Bandit got a facelift, the website. So go
It
check that
did.
out.
Yes.
It
That's
looks
right.
really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're a fan of that, do that too.
Time Bandit.
So
TimeBandit.io.
Time Bandit. I didn't put the ticker, but I can't do everything at the same time. I'm sorry. Like, just
Yeah.
I have limits. Okay, but anyway, see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.